Demons run when a God-man goes to war, not because they fear the fire in his eyes, but because they recognize what he is: truth in motion, purpose unshaken. A God-man doesn't go to war for glory or vengeance or pride. He goes because something deeper has been wounded, because silence has been shattered by the cries of the innocent, because the world dared to forget what justice sounds like when it walks with intent. You see, demons, real or imagined, within or without, they thrive in chaos. They whisper in the dark, feed on fear, twist what is good into what is useful. But when a God-man rises, he brings clarity, not the kind that comes from peace, but the kind carved in steel and sacrifice. He doesn't just carry weapons, he is one, forged by loss, tempered by mercy, sharpened by time. And so they run, not because they cannot fight, but because they know they have already lost. A God-man wages war with the weight of every soul that evil thought it owned. He is the reckoning they forgot was coming. He is the storm dressed in flesh, the prayer made real, the consequence long denied. There is no fury in him, only resolve, no hate, only remembrance. He walks forward, not to destroy but to restore. And still they run, because they know, deep down, in whatever passes for a heart in something so hollow, they know that when a God-man goes to war, the world will not come out the same. A God-man goes to war not for personal gain, but to answer a moral wound. He is driven by justice, not ego. This is what sets him apart from others who pick up arms. He doesn't seek fame, power, or the fleeting satisfaction of conquest. Instead, he moves because something within him has been deeply wounded, something that goes beyond flesh and bone. It's a wound in the very fabric of morality, a tear in the balance of right and wrong that calls for restoration. When this wound bleeds, it cries out for a response, and that response is what drives the God-man to take up the fight. His motivation is pure and singular: justice. Justice is not a game to him, not a tool for personal gain or a weapon to silence opposition. It is the very foundation of his existence, the invisible law that governs his every action. To him, justice is not abstract, it is living and breathing, a force that must be upheld at any cost. He fights because injustice festers like a poison, corrupting everything it touches. When that poison spreads, it harms the innocent, the vulnerable, the forgotten, and the God-man cannot stand by and watch that happen. He must act. Unlike those driven by ego, who see war as a stage for their own glory, the God-man sees it as a necessary burden. Ego is selfish, fleeting, and often blind, but his cause is clear and enduring. He understands that war is not a game of power plays or a way to prove himself better than others. It is a desperate answer to a desperate problem. His ego does not swell with victory because he knows that victory is never truly his own. It belongs to the cause, to the principles he defends, and to the people who suffer in silence. When he moves to war, it is with a heavy heart and steady hand. He bears the weight of countless lives on his shoulders. His fight is not reckless or driven by passion alone. It is measured, deliberate, and thoughtful. Each step he takes is calculated, not to satisfy a personal ambition, but to mend the broken moral order. His courage comes not from a desire to dominate, but from a deep sense of responsibility. A responsibility to right wrongs, to protect those who cannot protect themselves, and to challenge the darkness wherever it hides. The God-man's battle is often lonely. He does not rally crowds with promises of riches or fame, because his cause is not popular among those who benefit from the status quo. Many will misunderstand him, some will fear him, and others will even call him a fanatic. But he remains steadfast, knowing that true justice often walks a narrow and lonely path. His resolve is not shaken by criticism or doubt, because he fights for something far greater than himself. His enemies, whether literal demons, corrupt forces, or inner doubts, do not simply face a man with weapons. They face a force of nature, a symbol of unwavering justice that they cannot corrupt or bend. Demons run not because of physical might alone, but because they recognize the God-man's purpose and the certainty of his mission. They see in him a reckoning that cannot be escaped, a truth that cannot be denied. This is the power of a man driven by justice rather than ego. His strength comes from something eternal, something far beyond mere human ambition. War for him is a means to an end, not an end in itself. He does not delight in violence or destruction. He sees them as tragic necessities, to protect what is good and to dismantle what is evil. Each battle fought is a step toward healing the moral wound that first called him to action. He fights so that others might live in peace, so that the innocent might know safety, and so that truth might once again shine where darkness has reigned. In this way, the God-man's war is also an internal one. It is a battle to keep his own heart pure and his purpose clear. He knows that the greatest threat to his mission is the corruption of his own soul. When ego, bitterness, or hatred creep in and cloud his judgment, he must constantly remind himself that justice is not achieved through cruelty or vengeance, but through mercy, fairness, and unwavering integrity. His strength lies not just in his ability to fight external battles, but in his ability to master the war within. This internal discipline makes his actions even more powerful. When he strikes against injustice, he does so not out of anger, but out of love for what is right. His cause is sacred because it is rooted in the desire to protect and restore, not to destroy for the sake of destruction. This purity of purpose is what makes him unstoppable. It is why demons run when he goes to war, because they know that no matter how fierce the fight, they cannot outmatch the justice he carries within. Ultimately, the God-man's war is a testament to the idea that true power lies not in domination or fear, but in righteousness and courage. He shows us that when a person answers the call of justice, when he fights not for himself, but for a cause greater than any one man, he becomes unstoppable. His battle scars are marks of sacrifice, not vanity. His victories belong to the world, not to his name. This is why demons run when a God-man goes to war, because they face a force beyond their control, a force born from a wound that demands healing, and a man who will never stop fighting until justice is restored. Demons flee not from power but from purpose. They fear the clarity and righteousness that the God-man embodies. Power alone is a tool, something that can be wielded by many but mastered by few. It is often loud, chaotic, and unpredictable. But purpose, true, unshakable purpose, is something far more potent. It is a guiding light, a force that shapes every action and decision. It is the reason a God-man stands unyielding in the face of darkness, the reason he does not falter or lose his way. Demons, in their endless attempts to corrupt and destroy, are terrified by this kind of clarity, this unwavering commitment to what is right. Power without purpose is empty noise. It can intimidate, it can break bones, but it cannot change hearts or minds. It cannot bring order to chaos or heal a broken world. The God-man's power is different, because it is always tied to purpose. Every strike he makes, every step he takes, is aligned with a vision that is larger than himself. He fights not for personal gain or revenge, but to uphold a higher truth. This alignment gives his power meaning and makes it unstoppable. Demons sense this immediately. They know that facing mere power is a challenge they can meet with force or trickery, but facing purpose is something far more dangerous, because it cannot be defeated by brute strength alone. The clarity the God-man embodies is like a beacon in a storm. It cuts through confusion, doubt, and deception. Demons thrive in shadows, feeding on uncertainty and fear. They whisper lies, create illusions, and sow discord to weaken their enemies. But when the God-man steps forward with a clear purpose, those shadows retreat. His righteousness exposes their lies and shatters their illusions. The light he carries is not just physical or symbolic, it is a manifestation of his unwavering dedication to justice and truth. This clarity unsettles demons because it removes their greatest advantage, confusion. Righteousness is not just a feeling or a belief for the God-man. It is a way of being that defines his very existence. It demands sacrifice, discipline, and a constant commitment to what is right, even when it is difficult or unpopular. Demons fear righteousness because it resists corruption. It cannot be bought, bribed, or bent to serve selfish ends. The God-man's righteousness stands like a fortress, impenetrable to deceit and malice. This fortress is built not on arrogance, but on humility and an honest recognition of the responsibility he carries. The strength of his purpose makes his righteousness genuine and powerful, a force that terrifies those who thrive on chaos and evil. When demons encounter a God-man filled with purpose, they are forced to confront their own weaknesses. They are creatures of disorder and destruction, thriving where meaning is lost and hope is extinguished. The God-man's purpose restores meaning, rekindles hope, and calls for order where there was only decay. This restoration threatens the very existence of demons because it undoes the foundation upon which they build their power. Purpose undermines their influence by rallying people to stand against darkness, by inspiring courage where there was fear, and by demanding accountability where there was impunity. The God-man's purpose is not static. It evolves and grows stronger with every challenge he faces. Each act of righteousness, each moment of clarity in battle or in quiet reflection deepens his commitment. This evolution makes him unpredictable and relentless. Demons who often rely on patterns, weaknesses, and fear to manipulate their prey find it difficult to anticipate or counter the God-man's actions. His purpose is a living, breathing force that adapts and overcomes, making him a formidable adversary. Their fear grows not just because of what he is in the moment, but because of what he will become with every step forward. The presence of purpose also influences those around the God-man. It inspires allies, strengthens resolve, and fosters unity. When others see someone who is truly committed to a just cause, their own doubts and fears diminish. Purpose acts like a magnet, drawing people toward it and creating a force greater than the sum of its parts. Demons know that this unity is dangerous because it creates resistance that is difficult to break. It is easier to scatter individuals than to defeat a community bound by shared purpose and righteousness. The God-man, through his example, becomes a symbol of hope and a rallying point for those who refuse to be broken. In contrast, demons represent everything opposite to purpose. They are the embodiment of chaos, selfishness, and destruction. They seek to tear down meaning and sow despair. Their power is fleeting because it relies on weakness and division. When confronted by the God-man's purpose, their foundations tremble. They cannot stand against the clarity that illuminates their lies or the righteousness that challenges their cruelty. Their instinct is to flee, because staying means facing an enemy they cannot corrupt or intimidate. The God-man's purpose strips away their masks, exposes their true nature, and denies them the darkness they need to survive. Demons may possess cunning and strength, but they lack the one thing that makes the God-man truly formidable, a purpose that transcends fear, doubt, and pain. This purpose gives him the power to face any trial, to endure any hardship, and to continue fighting when others would falter. He gives him the resilience to rise after every fall, and the wisdom to know that his fight is not just for today, but for all tomorrows. This vision, this clarity of purpose, is why demons do not just face defeat, they run. Because they know that fighting a God-man who is driven by righteous purpose is a battle they cannot win. In the end, purpose is the God-man's greatest weapon. It is the source of his strength, the reason for his endurance, and the light that guides him through the darkest nights. Demons may come with all their power, their tricks, and their terror, but they cannot withstand the force of a man who fights with true purpose. That is why they flee, why they shrink back from the battle, and why they fear the God-man more than any other foe. Purpose is clarity made flesh, righteousness made real, and it is a force no darkness can endure. The God-man is more than a warrior, he is the weapon, shaped by pain, mercy, and unwavering resolve. This distinction sets him apart from those who simply take up arms or fight for fleeting causes. To be a warrior is to engage in battle, to clash with enemies on the field, to wield weapons and tactics in the moment of conflict. But to be the weapon itself is to embody something far greater. It means that the God-man's very existence is a force designed to confront and overcome darkness. His strength is not just physical, but spiritual and moral. It is forged through a journey marked by suffering, compassion, and an unbreakable determination that shapes every fiber of his being. Pain is a defining element in the making of the God-man. It is not just the pain of wounds inflicted by enemies or the scars left by battle. It is the deeper, more profound pain of loss, betrayal, and sacrifice. Pain teaches him humility, forcing him to recognize his own limitations and vulnerabilities. But rather than breaking him, this pain shapes his character and sharpens his purpose. It is the forge in which his strength is tempered, making him resilient in ways that go beyond muscle and skill. The God-man knows what it means to suffer, and this knowledge fuels his fight. He carries the pain of others as if it were his own, and this connection to suffering gives him a powerful sense of empathy and responsibility. Mercy is another vital force that shapes the God-man and distinguishes him from mere warriors. Where many see weakness in mercy, he sees strength. Mercy tempers his power, reminding him that the goal of his fight is not destruction for its own sake, but restoration. It ensures that his actions are guided not by rage or hatred, but by a desire to heal and protect. Mercy requires discipline, the discipline to hold back the urge to punish indiscriminately and to seek justice that is fair and balanced. This quality makes the God-man's weapon unique. It is not a blunt instrument of vengeance, but a precise tool wielded with wisdom and compassion. Mercy allows him to see the humanity even in those who oppose him, recognizing that the ultimate victory is not the defeat of enemies, but the redemption of what has been lost. Unwavering resolve completes the trinity of qualities that make the God-man the weapon. This resolve is a relentless commitment to his cause that does not waver in the face of hardship, doubt, or fear. It is a quiet, steady fire burning inside him that drives every action and decision. Where others might falter or give up when the battle grows long or the path grows dark, the God-man pushes forward. His resolve is rooted in a deep conviction that his fight matters, that it serves a purpose greater than himself. This conviction gives him endurance and focus, allowing him to overcome obstacles that would stop others in their tracks. It is this unwavering resolve that makes him a force no enemy can easily overcome. Together, pain, mercy, and resolve forge a weapon unlike any other. The God-man's strength is not simply in his ability to strike or defend, but in the harmony of these qualities within him. Pain gives him depth and understanding, mercy gives him purpose and direction, and resolve gives him the power to act without hesitation or doubt. This makes him more than just a fighter. He becomes a symbol of hope and justice, a living embodiment of the principles he defends. He is not just a participant in the war, but its very essence, a force that moves through the chaos with clarity and purpose. This transformation into the weapon is not instantaneous or easy. It requires time, struggle, and sacrifice. The God-man must face his own fears and flaws, endure losses that would break others, and make choices that demand great personal cost. Each trial shapes him, each victory and defeat hones his edge. This process is ongoing. The God-man never stops growing, never becomes complacent. His pain, mercy, and resolve are continually tested and strengthened through every challenge. This constant refinement ensures that he remains sharp, focused, and effective as the weapon the world desperately. Being the weapon also means that the God-man carries a responsibility unlike any other. A weapon can cause destruction, but it must be wielded wisely. The God-man understands that his power can harm as easily as it can protect. This awareness keeps him grounded and humble. He does not use his strength recklessly or for personal gain. Instead, he wields it with intention, always mindful of the consequences. This sense of responsibility is part of what makes him truly formidable. He is not driven by anger or desire for dominance, but by a careful consideration of what is right and necessary. In battle, the God-man moves with a purpose that goes beyond tactics and strategy. His every movement is deliberate, each strike precise and meaningful. He fights not just to defeat enemies, but to dismantle the roots of evil that threaten peace and justice. Because he is the weapon, he embodies the ideals he fights for. His presence alone inspires courage in allies and fear in foes. Those who face him know they are not simply battling a man, but a force of nature, a manifestation of pain transformed into strength, mercy made into resolve. The God-man's existence challenges the very nature of conflict. He shows that true power is not about domination or destruction, but about transformation. Through him, pain becomes a source of strength rather than weakness. Mercy becomes a guiding principle rather than a limitation. And resolve becomes an unbreakable force rather than a fleeting emotion. This transformation is what makes him more than a warrior. It makes him the weapon itself, a living embodiment of justice and hope. In the end, the God-man's story is not just one of battles won or enemies defeated. It is a story of what it means to carry pain without being consumed by it, to show mercy without losing strength, and to hold resolve without losing sight of compassion. It is the story of a man who has become more than flesh and bone, who has become the very weapon the world needs to fight the darkness. This is why demons flee when he comes to war, not because of the force he can unleash, but because of the pain, mercy, and unwavering resolve that shape him into something they cannot defeat. His war is not fueled by rage, but by memory and duty. He fights to restore what was broken, not to punish blindly. This is a fundamental truth that sets him apart from many who take up arms in moments of anger or desperation. Rage is a powerful emotion, raw and consuming, but it is often fleeting and chaotic. It can blind a person to reason, turning battles into vendettas and justice into revenge. The God-man, however, draws his strength from something far deeper and more enduring than rage. He carries with him the weight of memory, the memories of what once was, the people who were lost, the ideals that were shattered, and a profound sense of duty that calls him to act with purpose and restraint. Memory is the foundation of his fight. It is not merely recollection, but a living force that shapes his every step. He remembers the peace that was stolen, the innocence that was trampled, the promises that were broken. These memories are not sources of bitterness, but of motivation. They remind him of what is worth fighting for and what must be reclaimed. Each memory is a thread connecting him to the past, to the world as it should be, and to the people who depend on him. This connection fuels his resolve and guides his actions. Unlike rage, which burns hot and often fades quickly, memory endures. It is steady, reliable, and relentless. Duty is the compass that directs his war. It is a sacred responsibility that he accepts willingly, not as a burden, but as a calling. Duty demands discipline and sacrifice. It requires him to act not on impulse, but with consideration for the greater good. The God-man understands that his fight is not about personal vendetta or the satisfaction of anger. It is about restoring balance and justice to a fractured world. This sense of duty anchors him, preventing his mission from being derailed by emotion or pride. It reminds him that the goal is not destruction for its own sake, but restoration, to heal wounds, rebuild what was broken, and protect what remains. Because his war is driven by memory and duty, the God-man fights with clarity and intention. Every move, every decision is weighed against the purpose he serves. He does not lash out blindly or seek to punish without cause. His strikes are precise and deliberate, aimed at dismantling the roots of injustice rather than indulging in cruelty or wrath. This measured approach makes his battle not just physical but moral. He holds himself to a higher standard, knowing that true victory is not in annihilation but in redemption. This restraint sets him apart from those who wage war out of rage, for whom violence often becomes a cycle of retaliation that breeds more pain and suffering. His memories also carry the faces and voices of those who cannot fight for themselves, the innocent, the oppressed, the forgotten. Their stories are etched into his heart and mind, compelling him to stand firm even when the odds are against him. These memories humanize the conflict, transforming it from a mere struggle for power into a sacred mission to protect and restore life and hope. The God-man fights not because he desires conflict, but because he recognizes that some things are worth defending with every ounce of his being. His duty to these memories makes his war meaningful and righteous, a battle for the soul of the world, rather than a quest for personal vengeance. This connection to memory and duty also means that the God-man's war is a long and difficult one. It is not a quick battle or a simple fight. It is a sustained effort to mend what has been torn apart. He understands that restoration takes time and patience, that healing does not come from destruction alone, but from rebuilding and reconciliation. His fight is a marathon, not a sprint, and this endurance is born from his deep commitment to duty. He is prepared to sacrifice comfort, safety, and even his own peace to see the mission through. This long view is a testament to his character and his unyielding resolve. His enemies, on the other hand, often fight out of selfishness, cruelty, or rage. They seek to dominate or destroy for their own gain, caring little for the consequences of their actions. The God-man's war challenges this chaos with order and purpose. He does not respond to their cruelty with equal cruelty. Instead, he confronts it with the strength of his memory and the discipline of his duty. This distinction is what makes him dangerous to those who thrive on disorder and pain. They cannot easily understand or counter a force that fights not to punish blindly, but to restore meaning and justice. The God-man's restraint and focus also protect him from becoming what he fights against. War has a way of corrupting even the noblest souls, tempting them with power and vengeance. But by grounding his fight in memory and duty, he guards against these dangers. His memory reminds him of the cost of unchecked rage and the value of mercy, while his duty calls him to hold fast to his principles, even when it would be easier to give in to anger. This balance ensures that he remains a force for good, a beacon of hope rather than a source of further destruction. In the heat of battle, this perspective changes everything. The God-man does not see his enemies as faceless targets to be eliminated, but as part of a broken system that must be confronted and changed. He fights to break the cycle of violence, not to perpetuate it. His actions are infused with the knowledge that true justice is restorative, not merely punitive. This understanding guides him to seek solutions that bring lasting peace rather than temporary victory. His war is not a path to glory, but a duty to restore what was lost, to rebuild a world where justice and mercy prevail. Ultimately, the God-man's war is a testament to the power of memory and duty over rage and chaos. It shows that the greatest strength comes not from uncontrolled anger, but from a deep, enduring commitment to what is right. By fighting to restore rather than punish blindly, he embodies the highest ideals of justice and leadership. His battle is not just against external enemies, but against the forces within himself and the world that threaten to undo everything worth fighting for. This is why he endures, why he inspires, and why demons and darkness recoil when he rises. Because his war is not fueled by rage, but by the sacred memory of what was lost and the solemn duty to restore it. Demons know they are already defeated when he rises. His presence alone is a judgment they cannot escape. There is a power in arrival, a force in simply appearing that goes beyond any battle fought or weapons drawn. When the God-man rises, it is not just a signal that war is coming, it is a declaration that justice has arrived. That reckoning is inevitable. The demons, creatures born of darkness and deceit, sense this immediately. They feel a weight pressing down upon them, a certainty that their time has run out. It is not the clash of swords or the roar of battle that seals their fate, but the mere fact of his presence standing against them, unwavering and unyielding. This presence carries with it an invisible judgment, one that is as inescapable as time itself. It is not a judgment passed by law or decree, but a moral truth made manifest. The God-man embodies the principles of justice, righteousness, and accountability, and when he stands before the demons, he becomes a living embodiment of all that condemns them. They do not need to be defeated in battle to know their fate. They are already marked by his arrival. Their fears, their crimes, and their lies are exposed simply by the light he casts. This judgment strips away their illusions and reveals them for what they truly are: corrupt, broken, and destined to fall. The God-man's presence is a force that transcends physical confrontation. It is a challenge that reaches into the very essence of the demon's being. They may possess strength, cunning, and malice, but none of these can shield them from the truth he brings. His rise signals the collapse of their power, the undoing of their influence. It is a moment when all their schemes unravel, when the shadows they hide in begin to fade. They know that no matter what tricks they try, no matter how fiercely they fight, they stand before an inevitable judgment that cannot be avoided or denied. This inevitability is rooted in the God-man's own nature. He is not merely a man with weapons or skill. He is the living embodiment of justice incarnate. His rise is more than a physical act. It is the manifestation of a higher order. This order demands accountability and the restoration of balance. The demons, who thrive on chaos, fear this order above all else. It represents everything they seek to destroy: clarity, truth, and the certainty that evil will be confronted and defeated. The God-man's presence is a reminder that no darkness is permanent, and that justice, though sometimes slow, is inexorable. The judgment carried by his presence is also deeply personal. Demons are not just faceless enemies. They represent the corruption and evil that touch the world and the lives of many. When the God-man rises, he brings with him the weight of every injustice, every pain caused by these demons. This weight is like a spotlight that illuminates every sin and every weakness. The demons feel exposed and vulnerable under this gaze, as if their every crime is being laid bare. They are judged not only by the God-man, but by the very principles he represents, principles that demand truth and restitution. Because his presence is a judgment that cannot be escaped, demons often find themselves retreating even before a fight begins. They understand instinctively that facing him head-on means facing defeat. This fear is not just of physical harm, but of the certainty that their end is near. It is a recognition that no matter how hard they resist, the God-man's rise means the unraveling of their power and the closing of the dark chapter they have written. This knowledge often sows panic and confusion among them, weakening their resolve and breaking their unity. The God-man's presence is a weapon in itself, striking fear and despair into the hearts of those who would oppose him. The power of this presence is amplified by the God-man's own conviction and strength of character. He does not rise lightly or without cause. His ascent is the result of purpose, preparation, and an unshakable commitment to justice. This conviction radiates from him like an aura, a force field that pushes back against evil and corruption. The demons sense this and recoil because they know it cannot be replicated or faked. It is born from the God-man's integrity, his willingness to face pain and sacrifice, and his refusal to bend in the face of darkness. His presence is not just a warning, it is a promise that justice will be done. The inevitability of judgment that his presence brings also serves to inspire those who stand with him. Allies and innocents alike draw courage from his rise. They see in him the embodiment of hope and the certainty that evil will not prevail. His presence rallies the faithful, strengthens the weak, and turns the tide in battles both seen and unseen. This collective belief in his judgment and power creates a momentum that is difficult for demons to counter. It is a reminder that justice is not a solitary force, but one supported by many who yearn for a world free from darkness. Even in the moments before battle, the God-man's presence carries the weight of finality. It changes the atmosphere, turning fear into determination and confusion into clarity. Demons who once prowled boldly through the shadows shrink back, sensing that their defeat is not just probable, but assured. This transformation is a testament to the power of presence, not just physical proximity, but a spiritual and moral force that challenges and condemns. The God-man's rise is the moment when evil's hold begins to unravel, when hope rekindles, and when the world is reminded that justice will always find its way. In the end, demons do not need to be struck down by sword or spell to be defeated. Their defeat begins the moment the God-man rises, because his presence is a judgment written in the very fabric of existence. It is a declaration that darkness cannot endure, that evil will be held accountable, and that justice is more than an ideal. It is a force that moves through the world with unstoppable power. This is why demons flee, why they tremble, and why they know they are already defeated when the God-man rises. His presence is the final sentence, the unyielding truth, and the judgment they cannot escape. The world changes when a God-man goes to war. It becomes a place that remembers who stands for truth and who runs from it. This transformation is not just about battles fought or territories won. It is a profound shift in the very fabric of reality, in the hearts and minds of all who witness it. When the God-man rises to face the darkness, the world responds in kind. The air itself seems charged with a new energy, one that compels people to look inward and confront their own values and choices. In this altered world, truth is no longer a distant ideal or a vague aspiration. It is a force that demands recognition and allegiance, and everyone is measured by their response to it. The presence of the God-man acts like a mirror held up to society, reflecting back the hidden realities that often go unnoticed or ignored. In times of peace or complacency, truth can become clouded by convenience, fear, or self-interest. People may choose silence over courage, denial over honesty, but when the God-man goes to war, this illusion shatters. His actions and purpose illuminate the stark contrast between those who embrace truth and those who flee from it. This is not always a comfortable revelation. It forces individuals and communities to confront uncomfortable facts about themselves and the world around them. The God-man's war is a catalyst for awakening, a call to acknowledge what has been hidden in the shadows. This transformation extends beyond the battlefield. The world itself seems to shift, as if nature responds to the presence of justice and righteousness. Storms may quiet, winds may still, and even the earth feels the weight of this new order. It is as though the very elements align with the God-man's cause, reinforcing the idea that his fight is not merely human, but cosmic. In this changed world, the battle lines are drawn clearly, not just between armies or factions, but between those who choose to uphold truth and those who betray it. The distinction is undeniable, and the consequence is profound. Communities begin to take sides in ways they never did before. The God-man's war stirs the hearts of the oppressed and marginalized, giving them hope and courage to stand up. Those who have long suffered in silence find their voices, inspired by the clarity and conviction of the God-man's mission. At the same time, those who benefit from deception, corruption, or fear find themselves exposed and vulnerable. The world remembers who has been complicit in injustice, who has turned a blind eye, and who has actively resisted change. This memory is not a fleeting one. It shapes future generations and the course of history itself. The God-man's war also changes the nature of leadership and power. In his presence, true leaders rise, those who embody integrity, courage, and a commitment to the greater good. They are recognized and honored because the God-man's war demands more than just strength or influence. It demands truthfulness and moral clarity. Conversely, those who seek power through lies, manipulation, or cowardice are revealed for what they are. Their masks fall away, and their authority crumbles. The world learns to distinguish between genuine leadership and empty pretenses, forever altering the political and social landscape. This shift also affects individuals on a personal level. The God-man's war challenges people to examine their own lives and choices. It asks each person to decide whether they will stand for truth or run from it. This choice is not always easy. It often requires courage, sacrifice, and the willingness to face uncomfortable realities. But the God-man's example serves as a beacon, showing that standing for truth is not only possible, but necessary. His war reminds everyone that truth is not passive or abstract. It is active, demanding engagement and commitment. Those who heed this call find strength and purpose, while those who turn away face the weight of shame and regret. In the changed world, stories of courage and betrayal alike are remembered and passed down. Heroes who stood with the God-man become legends, their deeds inspiring others long after the war has ended. At the same time, those who fled from truth or chose deception are remembered as cautionary tales, warnings of what happens when fear or selfishness triumphs. This collective memory becomes a guiding force, shaping cultures and values for generations. It is a reminder that the God-man's war is not just a moment in time, but a turning point in the moral and spiritual evolution of humanity. The world's transformation also touches the very concept of justice. Under the God-man's influence, justice is no longer something distant or delayed. It becomes immediate and tangible. The God-man's war accelerates the reckoning, forcing wrongs to be addressed and truths to be acknowledged. This urgency changes how societies operate, pushing them toward greater transparency and accountability. Systems that once protected the powerful at the expense of the weak begin to crumble, replaced by structures that value fairness and integrity. The God-man's war ignites a wave of reform and renewal, setting a new standard for what justice truly means. Even the enemies of the God-man are affected by this change. They recognize, often too late, that they cannot hide or evade the truth that now governs the world. Their lies unravel, their alliances fracture, and their influence wanes. The God-man's war dismantles the foundations of their power, leaving them exposed and isolated. This exposure forces a reckoning, not only with the God-man, but with their own consciences and the reality of their action. The world remembers these moments, recording the fall of darkness and the triumph of light. At its core, the world's change when a God-man goes to war is about awakening, a collective awakening to the reality that truth matters, that justice is essential, and that each person's choices carry weight. It is a shift from complacency and denial to awareness and responsibility. The God-man's war strips away illusions and forces a confrontation with reality, challenging everyone to rise to the occasion. This transformation is both terrifying and hopeful, for it demands courage but offers the possibility of renewal. In this new world, the lines between right and wrong become clearer, and the consequences of choosing either path are unmistakable. The God-man's presence and actions serve as the ultimate test, a measure by which all are judged. Those who stand with him find strength and purpose, while those who flee from truth find only despair and ruin. This lasting division shapes the course of history, forging a world that remembers who stood for truth and who ran from it. It is a world forever changed by the God-man's war. A world where truth is no longer optional, but essential. A world reborn through the fire of righteous conflict.